This is the story of a child whose father died when he was just 2 years old, and whose mother raised him with immense hard work. She struggled to raise him and later got betrayed by her business partner. But despite all odds, he went on to create the most luxurious car of the century, Mercedes-Benz. Karl Benz was the man behind the name, Benz. His father was a train driver, and his mother was a housewife. When Karl was only 2 years old, his father passed away. His mother had to work at different places to raise him. Karl saw his mother's hardships and became a brilliant student. At the age of 15, he qualified for mechanical engineering and got admission into the Polytechnic School in Karlsruhe. After completing his studies, he worked at 7 different places, sometimes as a draftsman, sometimes as a designer. While working, he observed his surroundings and realized something very important. Horse carriages would eventually disappear, and self-propelled vehicles would take their place. At the age of 27, Karl left his job and started a workshop with a mechanic named August Ritter. They opened an iron foundry. In his free time, Karl kept working on building a self-propelled car. But since August Ritter also held shares in the company, Karl couldn't fully control things or leave, as all his income came from the factory. But then a girl named Bertha Ringer stepped in, who later became Karl's wife. Bertha's family had saved money for her dowry. She used part of that money to buy all of August Ritter's shares. Now, Karl and Bertha became the sole owners of the factory. Over the next 10 years, they registered many patents: ignition systems, gear shifts, clutch mechanisms, carburetors, engine cooling systems, spark plugs, and speed regulators. Yet, the company wasn't profitable. Karl would keep selling shares to investors in return for money, and eventually, he was left with only 5% of the company. Because of this, the other shareholders demoted him to a low position. Karl was heartbroken. He realized he couldn't fulfill his dreams in that company and left, back to zero. A few weeks later, Karl met 2 brothers, Max Rose and Friedrich Wilhelm, who owned a bicycle shop. The 3 started a new company called Benz and C. This time Karl had enough time to work on his engine, and in 1885, he made a self-propelled car. But it crashed into a wall during testing, so the model didn't sell well. The next year they released Model 2, and then Model 3 2 years later. Karl's wife, Bertha, believed in the Model 3, but Karl was hesitant to promote it. So, Bertha took matters into her own hands. On August 4, 1888, Bertha secretly took her 2 sons and drove the car 106 kilometers to her mother's house. People on the way were terrified, shouting, "Ghost! Ghost!" They had never seen a car move without horses. She stopped at a pharmacy to buy Ligroin, a petroleum solvent, making that pharmacy the first fuel station in the world. The roads were bad, the car kept breaking down, and Bertha repaired it using her hairpin. When the wooden brakes wore out, she stopped at a cobbler's shop and got leather brakes installed. It took her 12 hours to complete the 106 kilometers journey. Later, she wrote to Karl about reaching her mother's house and then drove the car back. This trip gave their company a lot of publicity. She also gave Karl feedback about the brakes, which led to design improvements. This was the first time a wife introduced her husband's invention to the world. Thanks to this, Benz's internal combustion engine got recognition, and Benz became the world's largest automobile company. In 1897, they sold 2 cars, an impressive number for the time, as most people still used horse carriages. Meanwhile, another company became their competitor, Daimler Motors, run by Gottlieb Daimler and Wilhelm Maybach. Daimler was a good businessman, unlike Karl Benz. They introduced a car called 35 HP, which became a big hit. Due to Germany's poor economic conditions, both Benz and Daimler were struggling. They decided to merge, forming the Daimler-Benz company. All future car models from the company were called Mercedes-Benz, named after a popular Daimler model and Maybach's daughter, Mercedes. Many models were designed by the famous designer Ferdinand Porsche. In April 1929, Karl Benz died at the age of 84. Then came Adolf Hitler. He loved Mercedes-Benz and used to travel in their cars. He wanted the world to know that German cars were the best. He asked Daimler-Benz to build the fastest car in the world, which they did. Mercedes cars started winning most races, beating even their rival Auto Union, also a German company. In 1939, World War II began. Hitler asked German companies to stop public production and make vehicles for the Nazi army. Daimler-Benz first hired women workers, but when that wasn't enough, they forced Jewish prisoners to work. At one point, 63,000 prisoners worked for them. After the war, the company's image was badly damaged. Foreign manufacturing plants were taken away, and only German plants remained. Daimler-Benz began rebuilding its image, making ambulances, police vehicles, and eventually public cars again. By 2022, they sold 2.4 million cars worth 13,640 billion rupees INR. Post-World War II, they launched one luxury car after another. 1950s, W17220, W16300. 1960s, W112300 SE, W100600. 1970s, R107 SL Class, W123. 1980s 2000s, W201, A Class, C Class, G Class, S Class. 2010s 2020s, GLA Class, E Class, and many top-tier SUVs. See you in the next video.